The house sits there, waiting. Hear its story. My name is Ellie, and welcome to Tales of Two Cities podcast.
Hello?
Welcome.
This is Tales of the Two Cities.
Oh, I'm so excited.
When we think of Kansas, we think of the Wizard of Oz. But in the quaint little town of Atchison, Kansas, comes a truly sinister dwelling. A place Dorothy would never want to come home to. At first glance, it seems like an average brick house, with large windows and a pitched roof. It seems like something you would easily pass and not think anything about. However, the Sallie House is the home of torment, and is labeled as the most haunted house in the United States. The house was built in 1867 for the Finney family. During that time, there wasn't much ghostly activity in the house. In fact, the family lived there for generations. That doesn't mean they didn't have their share of heartbreak. 4 Finney members did die in the house. M.C. Finney in 1872, Charles James Catherine, father of Kate Finney, in 1887, Richard Edwin Finney in 1874, and Angus Finney in 1939. The house stayed in the family's hands until 1947, when the last Finney member, Charles, passed. Then, the house stood vacant for years. However, there is a reason why the house is called the Sallie House and not the Finney House. One night, Dr. Charles Finney was at home enjoying, what we all enjoy, the winding down of the day. It was a rainy night, so the only noise that could be heard was the roar of the wind and the thunderous wail of the rain. Charles soon was pulled from the moment due to the frantic banging on the front door. When Charles opened the door, he was faced with his neighbor carrying her screaming daughter, Sallie. Sallie needed medical attention, and Charles was a doctor. Charles took Sallie from the neighbor's arms and laid her on the table. The doctor assumed the screams were coming from a burst appendix. Sallie, a child in substantial pain, fought against Dr. Finney, who tried to administer a sedative. He had to restrain her with one hand and sedate her with the other. When he thought he administered the correct dosage, he began to perform the surgery. Only when the scalpel dug right into her flesh, he realized he gave her the wrong amount. She awoke, and she was screaming. As she screamed and screamed, he continued cutting away. She eventually died of the blood loss and shock. After the death of Dr. Charles Finney, the house stayed vacant for years. Eventually, the Pickmans bought the house in 1993. That's when the activity started. It began in the nursery, a room celebrating the Pickmans' first baby. The room was filled with teddy bears, an item that Sallie loved dearly. When setting up the nursery, the couple placed the teddy bears around the room, on the bed, on the shelves, on the floor. But when they came back to the room, all the teddy bears were placed, sitting in a circle, looking at each other. This happened several times. In their own room, they would see Sallie. In the middle of the night, groggily waking up from their uncomfortable feeling of being watched, the Pickmans would see a ghostly figure of a small girl staring at them, lost and waiting. Eventually, objects would be thrown across the house. It became so uncomfortable that the Pickmans called a psychic. When the psychic entered the house, she saw a figure of a tall man sitting by the window. He stood up and then walked into the kitchen. The psychic and the pigments walked around the house, burning sage to cleanse every room. However, when the father went into the master bedroom, he was attacked violently. Scratched and thrown through the air, Tony, or the father, hit the wall so hard he was thrown off his boots. The wife tried to help, but found herself held down by an unseen force. The psychic demanded the spirit to let go of Tony, and it eventually did. However, the family could feel the evil presence around them. Tony would constantly be attacked, waking up with scratches and burns all over his body. He even claimed he was possessed, declaring his want to kill his wife. The house was featured on Ghost Adventures. Many of the people witnessed objects flying through the air, unexplained smells, moving furniture, shadow people, and ghost attacks. There are various EVP recordings in the house. In the recordings, there are different voices again of men, women, animals, and children. EVP, or electronic voice phenomenon, are recordings of words or phrases that are caught out of nowhere. Here is an EVP recording of a voice saying, "Do you love me?" Here's another that says, "That'll be Frank Walters." Some believe Sallie vowed revenge after her death. However, why are there other spirits in the house? Many have seen a ghostly apparition of a woman wandering the hallways and stairs. And what about the shadow man who left the windowsill and entered the kitchen? Even children have been seen playing around the house. The only thing that can be said that it is a house that wants to be heard and seen. It is an entity all of its own. However, with each story that it wants to tell, how can we decipher what it really needs to say? I just don't know. If you want to have more than just free stuff, check out our Patreon. Nikki and I create special episodes for the one-time fee of $5. We also offer merch, shoutouts, and other deals as well. If you want to represent us, please check out our merch store on TeePublic. We have added more fun things for our relaunch, and we believe that you're going to love them. We also model our favorite items once a week throughout this month, so you have a lot of options to see. We offer many exclusive Tales of Two Cities items as well, and other items from artists all over the world. If you want to talk, write to us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and our email at talesofthe2citiespodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you, and we genuinely love telling your stories on our podcast as well. But, above all, thank you, and please enjoy our marathon of minis. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to us on your podcast device. We're also here on Spotify and Stitcher, so please join us there too. If you want to have more than just free stuff, check out our Patreon. Nikki and I create special episodes for the one-time fee of $5. We also offer merch, shoutouts, and other deals as well. If you want to represent us, please check out our merch store on TeePublic. We have added more fun things for our relaunch, and we believe that you're going to love them. We also model our favorite items once a week throughout this month, so you have a lot of options to see. We offer many exclusive Tales of Two Cities items as well, and other items from artists all over the world. If you want to talk, write to us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and our email at talesofthe2citiespodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from you, and we genuinely love telling your stories on our podcast as well. But, above all, thank you, and please enjoy our marathon of minis.